Chelsea 2, Newcastle 2, and the Jekyll and Hyde nature of Chelsea Football Club's games at the moment continue. It was like this against Cardiff. It's now been like this against Newcastle. But ultimately, we came out with the point in what was a really, really difficult game. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sync, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And today, we're going to look at 10 takeaways from Newcastle 2, Chelsea 2. Right? The first one... fast starts to the new low blocks. I've said this before, man. It's just a thing now. People have just identified that we are vulnerable in the opening stages of a game. Obviously, Newcastle scored inside the first 3 minutes, and that obviously just completely knocked our confidence, man. Completely knocked our confidence. They had 3 corners in the first 15 minutes, and we absolutely just could not keep up with their intensity. It was obvious from the off that Eddie Howe said to this Newcastle team, be aggressive, because we couldn't handle it. And you know what? He was 100% right. We were not prepared for how incredibly aggressive Newcastle were in that first half. It was a really, really poor first half from us. And ultimately, the lineup didn't look too bad. Do you know what I mean? The lineup looked kind of what you would expect. Maybe, Enzo Fernandez was on the bench, but ultimately, Maresca has come out before and said, when I want physicality in midfield, I'm going to put Reece James there. So the weird thing is he obviously expected that kind of aggression and physicality, but mentally, we were just not up for it, man. We were just not up for it at all. So loads of props to Newcastle for that first half, man. Chelsea were really, really bad, don't get me wrong, 100%, like a lot of it was down to us, but you can't take away just how clinical, aggressive, passionate and determined Newcastle were in that first half, and they made it really, really difficult for us. The second point, Walter showed us why we need a proper striker, man. Do you know what I mean? Walter was not an 80 to 100 million signing that was destined to take the Premier League by storm. He was reasonably affordable and not even necessarily going to be their first choice option for this season. He came in on the pitch, he is thinking about scoring goals. He's not drifting wide, dropping deep, linking up play. Like, it's good if when your striker can do a bit of that, don't get me wrong. But Walter Marder's first and final thought, for the most part, is be clinical, get the ball in the back of the net. Now, Pedro Neto, I'll get onto this a little bit later. Pedro Neto scored his goal, wicked. Really glad for that. But at the end of the day, man, you look at the 2 goals that they scored, they were just really, really clinical moments from ultimately a clinical striker who they don't expect a huge amount more from. Like I say, they're not expecting Walter Marder to drop into the number 10. They're not expecting him to drift out wide so their wingers can get into that position. Do you know what I mean? Walter Marder is just a goal scorer. He is literally just a goal scorer, and he did it twice, and they were both really good goals, man, and he very, very, very close to being on a hat-trick. That first half was so tense, man, because after we conceded 2 goals in the first 20 minutes, and for the most part, we held out for the rest of the half, but it felt like we could have conceded again. And there was a really good opportunity when Malagusto was on the floor. There was a bit of confusion, and Newcastle just played on. Walter Marder could easily have had a hat trick there. So ultimately, my point here is, look, I'm glad João Pedro got his goal today. Don't get me wrong, and it was a good striker's goal as well. But that is only, I think, the second goal that João Pedro scored in the Premier League this season. So for all of our talks of a title challenge and however good we are at the moment, we've gotten to where we are with a striker that scored 2 goals in the Premier League at this point. Do you know what I mean? And we might stay in 4th depending on what the rest of the results around us are. But ultimately, like I say, man, if we had someone who was on 7 or 8 goals by this point, vis-a-vis Emmanuel Omega or Joaquin Panicelli, kind of got a couple of guys that I've talked about before, if we could have a striker that was expected to score a reasonable amount of goals, then our position would be a lot stronger at the moment. Number 3, this is an interesting one. I think we really missed out on Anthony Gordon, man. So when Blueco came in, Anthony Gordon was still at Everton, and he was literally one of the first players that we targeted. A lot of people weren't really up for it at the time. We were talking about 40 mil, which now seems like a sniff. Garnacho had a difficult game today. I think Garnacho, as Jekyll and Hyde as the overall performance was, Garnacho's performance within himself was quite Jekyll and Hyde. He made a load of really good things happen, and he also made a load of really terrible things happen. Jamie Gittins absolutely does not look on it. Jadon Sancho, Mykhailo Mudryk, all of the guys we've had are just not looking good. They showed the highlights reel, and yes, I know it's a highlight reel, but at the beginning of the game, they showed Anthony Gordon's recent highlight reel, and man, he just looks fantastic. He's going to be pushing for a spot in the England team 100%. He gets assists, he's scored goals, he's direct, he's fast, he's pacey, he's technical. maybe a little, not a faux pas, because ultimately we did go in for him, and I think the problem at the time was the money at the end of the day. But you got to look at Anthony Gordon now and be like, oh man, compared to the rest of our left wing situation, Anthony Gordon is actually looking pretty good, isn't he? So not a massive point, just something I noticed today, that today in the game, you know, he actually played really well, and also throughout the season, he's got like 5 goals in the Champions League, scored a couple of penalties in the Prem, but he's getting assists. He's a really, really, really good player, and I think Anthony Gordon is arguably, he's probably better than Garnacho and Jamie Gittins and Tyreek George at the moment. So maybe we missed out on that one, but we move. Number 4, I've kind of mentioned it already. We couldn't deal with the aggression, man. The absolute power that Newcastle came out of the blocks with today just wiped us, absolutely wiped us. So obviously they got their goal in the first 3 minutes, but they just kept on going. They just kept on pushing, and they dropped off in the second half 100%. At the end of the day, they struggled to keep up that same level of aggression throughout the second half, and yeah, man, they were probably knackered by the end of it, do you know what I mean? But at the end, like, for me, the aggression that they showed, and by extension the aggression that we showed in the second half, like, we ended up kind of matching it eventually, but it took a whole half to get there, and we were just flattened by it, man. Absolutely flattened. The possession was about 50-50, but we were just not doing anything with the ball. Like, they had 5 shots on target in the first half and we had none. Do you know what I mean? They had like 3, 4, 5 corners in the first half and we had 1, something like that. It was poor. It was really, really, really poor. And like I say, for me, going forward, this isn't an isolated situation now. Do you know what I mean? Leeds played like that. Bournemouth played like that. Burnley even tried to play like that. So for some reason, teams around us now are identifying our lack of ability to deal with that kind of level of aggression, and that's probably something that we're going to see a lot more of. Initially, the problem was the low block, wasn't it? We were all worried about the low block, but for whatever reason, teams are getting away from that low block now, and they are just looking at coming at us in the early stages of the game. Maybe it's because we've got a young team, I'm not 100% sure, but it is working. Got to give credit to Maresca for not making any changes at half-time, and at the end of the day, he managed to talk the players into a better performance rather than having to make subs. So Maresca has to get the credit for the aggression that we showed in the second half, and I hope he had some stern words with the team at half-time, to be honest. But yeah, that aggression just needs to be something that we need to learn to deal with or incorporate ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We need to come out more ready, more up for it, not just like, okay, well, warm into the game, play nice slow passing around the block. No, mate, just get into it, especially against these beatable teams. Right now, Newcastle was always going to be difficult, but largely I'm referring to the Brentford game, the Crystal Palace game, the Leeds game, the Bournemouth game. Do you know what I mean? The Atalanta game. We need to come out against these teams, man. We 100% need to come out. Number 5, the lineup was good. So this is the thing, is like, I was, in my head, because I've obviously been quite annoyed at Enzo Maresca recently for everything that's kind of been going on. I've kind of been like, how do I blame Maresca for this? Not like, not thinking of it like that, but just instantly in my head, I'm just like, how is Maresca culpable for this performance? At the end of the day, he put a good team out, man. Like I say, it was the players today. The players definitely mentally were not there. Now, is there a conversation to be had around, has everything that's gone on in the press recently affected the players and are they feeling a bit down? Now, maybe, or, maybe there's something going on in the dressing room. I'm not sure about that. But like I say, the lineup was good. We weren't looking at the lineup today being like, oh, why has he put this guy on? Why has he put that guy on? The only unusual thing, and I say unusual is because we haven't seen it very much, is he didn't start Enzo Fernandez and he started Reece James in that midfield, but he has come out before and said when he wants more physicality in midfield, he starts Reece James. So when you see Caicedo and Reece James next to each other in the midfield, you're looking at, okay, he wants to play more physically. I wouldn't have said either, to be completely honest, that Enzo Fernandez coming on later changed the game. So like I say, it was a mental thing today, but I've got to give Maresca credit where credit is due. The lineup was good, and he obviously did a really good job talking him out of the situation in the second half. So fair play to him for that. Number 6, Reece James is world class. Oh, mate, what that free kick? Oh, the free kick! It is so good to have a player like Reece James as our captain as well, who can turn a game on its head. And Cole Palmer kind of used to be that magical player that can just come up with something and turn it on its head. We've seen Esteval like that a few times as well. Maybe we don't give Reece James enough credit for being able to just do something like that, because it's not the first time either. I think in the Club World Cup, he scored a pretty tasty free kick or two that kind of turned the games around. But at the end of the day, Reece James is just phenomenal. He does an amazing job in midfield at the moment. I say amazing. He does a good job in midfield, and stuff like that is incredible. he does a really, really good job, whether he's been asked to play right centre-back, a normal right-back or inverting kind of right-back. Across the board, Reece James, arguably the best player in our squad at the moment. And it's just so good to see him finish all of these 90 minutes. It does seem that we are well and truly at the end of the management of Reece James's minutes for the most part. There's going to be little bits here and there. He's not going to be like Caicedo, and maybe never again, but he's not going to be like Caicedo and Cucurella, where they just play 90 minute after 90 minute after 90 minute. But ultimately, you can see today the effect he has on the pitch. And obviously, the free kick was one thing, but other things as well, like when stuff's getting a bit heated, he's a lot better of the captain leadership role now. He's jumping straight in front of the players. He's pushing them away. He's telling them to calm down. He used to have quite a lot of little moments himself, do you know what I mean? Where, yeah, a little bit petulant and got a bit fiery, got a bit angry, but he's definitely really, really grown into this leadership role. Massive, massive shout out to Reece James today, because ultimately he got us back into the game. And although we did come out a lot more aggressively, that has to be seen as the turning point for the game, doesn't it, at the end of the day? Number 7, as of right now, I think that Caicedo doesn't look the same as he did before the Arsenal game and since the Arsenal game. In the earlier stages of the season, and like a month ago, you know, when we played Arsenal or whatever, we were all talking about Caicedo as one of the best midfielders in the world. You know, when we played the Liverpool game, everyone was like, is it Gravenberch or is it Caicedo? And Caicedo has just been absolutely phenomenal for the most part of this season. But since the Arsenal game, obviously he got sent off, and that in itself was like, okay, he lost it a little bit there, and he just doesn't seem to be quite as assured in himself as he has been. Now, he grew into this game as well today, 100%. He definitely came back from a ropey first half and looked really assured in the second half. But at the end of the day, I just don't think Moises Caicedo looks quite as assured as you would expect him usually to be. I don't know what's going on. Maybe, I mean, he had a couple of games out. Maybe that was it, but arguably, like, he's been playing so much that the boy needs a rest, you know what I mean? I'm hoping that with a few more games, he can kind of get back into that form, because that's one thing that I feel like we've been missing in this. Obviously, not having Caicedo on the pitch, but even in like the Atalanta game, the Cardiff game, he played the entire first half of the Cardiff game, and obviously this game as well. In the first half in particular, and not until, you know, from the Atalanta game up until the second half of this game, I've been looking at Caicedo a little bit, being like, oh, bro looks a little bit off it, man. So he's kind of had a bit of a dip in form, but I'm hoping that comes back now. He had an excellent shot on target. He seemed to be getting more of those classic Caicedo, Kante style interceptions and stuff towards the end of the game as well. I'm just really hoping that, again, the fixtures just don't calm down now for ages. You know what I mean? Caicedo is going to be so important. Having him at his absolute best is going to be so important. So hopefully Caicedo is just going to start getting back to the way we knew him, because like I say, I just think he's been off it for a little while. Number 8, my heart can't take it, man. My heart can't take it. After how difficult the Cardiff game was the other day, I really loved the watch along for talking to you guys about it. It was great, but watching the game, I decided not to do one for this one. I just wanted to watch the game, and I was sat here at the edge of my seat. Obviously, after in the first half, I was like absolutely miserable, and then Reece James scores pretty early into the second half, and I'm like, oh, we're in it, and then João Pedro comes and scores an excellent striker's goal to level it out. And I was just like, oh, mate, we needed that so much, man. I was like, my heart can't take it, though. My emotions are being battered, bruised, and pulled all over the place with our team at the moment. But ultimately, credit to João Pedro, man. Credit to João Pedro. He's got a couple of goals in recent games. He was pretty good in in general in this game. I still believe, like, the thing is, it doesn't matter what I think, because I'm not the manager and whatever, but I still think we need a striker, like not a Walter Marder, but that idea of a striker whose main number one focus in the team is getting goals. He did really well today. He played that entire play, like took advantage of the opportunity and rounded the keeper like a striker. Do you know what I mean? So it was really good to see João Pedro do that, but ultimately the problem with that, as I mentioned before, that's 2 Premier League goals from João Pedro now. So he needs at least 10 by the end of the season, and that would be worse than both of Nicholas Jackson's last seasons. Do you know what I mean? So look, credit to João Pedro, but and the main point is like this Jekyll and Hyde situation, my heart can't take it. Number 9, Cole Palmer got 80 minutes of football today. A little bit more than 80 minutes, I guess, it was like 84 minutes if you include the extra time in the first half. He still doesn't look back to his complete best, but he is offering something that we obviously just severely lack when he's not there. He really connects play together, man. And these little one-touch passes and little dinky over-the-top balls and stuff is just what we don't really see a huge amount of that when he's not there. And I was surprised he wasn't hooked at 60 minutes today. Do you know what I mean? He got 80 minutes and Andre Santos came on for him. So that's good. He's building back into fitness, which hopefully then means he's building back into form. He has got a goal already. No goal involvement today, but it wasn't a case of looking at Cole Palmer like he was the problem. Do you know what I mean? The defence was the problem today. Trevor Chalobah and Fofana were obviously really, really off it in the first half. Malagusto was a little bit all over the place. The attacking side of it, Garnacho, like I say, a bit Jekyll and Hyde. Pedro looked a little bit off it in the first half, much, much better in the second half. João Pedro, okay, but ultimately Cole Palmer looked better today. And like I say, I think he's building back into that form. The fact that he got 80 minutes today, I think, is really, really important. And number 10... it was a good 0.1, but we shouldn't have been in that position, man. That's the truth, isn't it? Like, we need whatever was in the second half needs to be there in the first half, because there are a couple of times like Wolves this season, we went in 3-0 at half time and then they changed their tactics and, you know, obviously the second half was really difficult. But for the most part, we are starting to see a pattern emerge of lackluster first halves. Maresca either makes a change or has a word in the second half and things start to look better. We need to start getting into the first half a bit more, and you know, we need to be that as aggressive as we were when we came out in the second half. We need to see not all of the time, but just more of that in general. Like, the bottom level of aggression needs to be higher. I understand you can't play at an 8 or 9 level of aggression all throughout a game all the time, and that isn't really conducive to our style of play. But I think we need to see more of it than we're seeing at the moment in these first halves of games. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of it, man. Those are my 10 takeaways from the game. And just to sum it up in general, it was a good 0.1, but it shouldn't have been a 0.1, and we should have won that game, man. We should have won that game. If we had matched Newcastle in that first half with the same aggression that we showed in the second half, we could have scored in that first half, and then the whole landscape of the game could have changed even earlier than it did. Do you know what I mean? And it could have been a basketball game. It could have been a really high-scoring game or whatever, but we just didn't turn up in that first half, man, and that is something that Maresca needs to identify how to deal with. He needs to, and maybe that's like... it's probably not about instruction, but it might be about man management. And this is one thing I've kind of mentioned about before. One thing I think Maresca lacks compared to the better coaches that we've had. And that's a high bar, don't get me wrong. I realise that he's not at that level yet. But to get to that level, we need more character from him. Like, he got a yellow card in the second half for being fiery. Like, I want to see that a bit more. And I think that will reflect on the players if he can come out and be a bit more aggressive and a bit more pointed. And like I say, we obviously saw it because the players came out in the second half and were absolutely wicked. So that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap it up there. Let me know what you thought about the game today, and how do you think our chances fare for the next game, which is Aston Villa. I think at least in the Premier League it is. I'm not sure if we've got another game before that. But yeah, at the end of the day, guys, I'd absolutely love to know what you think in the comments. What were any of your really big points from the game that I maybe didn't cover today? I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day. I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.